Like if that was me and I was in the interaction, I would be walking out of that room to go back home. Hi everyone, I'm Julie, she's Kelly, and we're here to find love. We're in Bachelor Season 27, Episode 5, and we're back again this week and every week to recap Zach's season. If you're new here, welcome. We're two dating coaches who analyze the relationship psychology and dating themes in reality TV shows, especially The Bachelor. So if you're into this sort of stuff, hit that subscribe button to follow along and join the conversation.
So this week we are in London, which in theory was going to be really fun and exciting. However, the week gets crashed by a certain virus, which, oh my God, we will get into shortly. But first, the week kicks off with a one-on-one date between Gabby and Zach, which I continue to be shocked about. I just really didn't see the Gabby thing coming, unlike Julie here, who just completely picked her out of the crowd night one. So I was very shocked to see her get a one-on-one date. I don't know. I just continue to be like surprised. However, I thought she was so cute on this date. They went around and did all these different like kind of royal related activities. They made perfumes and they, I don't know, hung out with like royal dogs and stuff like that. So it was very cute, and I felt like Gabby's personality like really shined on this episode. I was very impressed by her. I thought she was like funny, but like in kind of like a low-key way. She was like a little bit weird. I like kind of liked her personality.
She was so endearing. They just have a very similar sense of humor. They're endearing in the same ways. They're cheesy in the same ways. It was really nice to just see just like very organic chemistry come from these two. I feel like that hasn't been so typical. It's been harder for me to see him really jiving with a lot of the girls. So it was really nice to see them kind of like, wow, like there is something there and there's something simmering, and I can actually see her making it decently far.
Yeah, I completely agree. She was a very pleasant surprise, at least to me. I mean, obviously she's gorgeous. She just hadn't stuck out to me for some reason this whole time, but after kind of getting a sense of her personality, I really did feel like she's the type of person that Zach would really like, because she's so, you know, she was having so much fun in all these different environments, really kind of making the most of it, telling jokes. She's like entertaining, you know, just very entertaining to like have experiences with and do all of these cute little activities with. So I feel like Zach is into that kind of stuff. He really likes people who are just, you know, really fun to be with and fun to do things with. And I think Gabby is exactly that type of person. Like, she's exactly the kind of person who I would want to go around a new city with, because she just has that like kind of personality that just seems really easy to be around, but also not like performative funny, just like kind of low-key funny, which I kind of liked. I don't know, it was very attractive to me.
I liked the portion of their date where she was like trying on dresses for Zach, and Zach was just like, oh my God, you look so beautiful, and how she said later that it was just so healing or so beautiful for her to be part of an experience where she's had issues with her self-image, and for a man that she's really interested in to tell her, like, you look so beautiful and you don't really need a mirror for that. I loved that part of the date, and it was really genuine.
Completely agree. Okay, I have to say one thing, though, about this date, about this, especially the evening portion.
Tell me. Yeah.
I love Gabby, but I feel like with Zach, I keep getting all of these different red flags with him. On this evening portion of the date, like when they first sat down, Gabby sits down and they're in their beautiful little outfits and stuff. And Gabby says, you know, today I was so nervous. I mean, I was excited, but also nervous. Right. That was like the first thing that she says. And Zach goes, you know what? No, the thing that I like about you is that you're not nervous. And that's how it should be. I like people who are really authentic. And I was like, wait, but she was just telling you that she's nervous. Why are you saying that she's not nervous? And then also saying that if she was nervous, it would be a problem? Like, I don't know. His reaction was super strange to me. I was like, if I sat down with a guy and said, I'm feeling really nervous, and he told me, you're not nervous, and I like that you're not nervous, and if you were nervous, that would be weird. I was like, what? I would be so like kind of, oh, I guess I'm not nervous then. You know, then I would feel this pressure to behave or like not show him that I'm nervous. It was just a very strange comment. And then as they kept talking, she brought up that, you know, it's not always sunshine and rainbows in a real relationship. And he was like, yeah, totally. We won't always be dressed up. I do want to go through the ups and downs of life, and I want to be with someone who's real like that. Unlike my ex, Rachel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Zach, where did this even come Rachel again. Like, Gabby is talking about something completely separate. She's talking about how, you know, sometimes, like, I won't always be this happy, buoyant person. Sometimes I will have a more down energy. Gabby is talking about that, and somehow Zach tied it to Rachel, who he criticized Rachel for doing the same thing. He was like, oh, she was so buoyant the whole time, and then all of a sudden she was different. So it was like the thing that Gabby was kind of talking about how sometimes I won't be so happy. Zach brought up how his ex did that and he didn't like it. So it was such a weird response to what Gabby was talking about. It was like everything Gabby was saying of like, FYI, like sometimes I'm nervous. FYI, I'm not always sunshine and rainbows. He would kind of return and say like, yeah, don't do that. I don't like it when girls are like that. It was a weird conversation. Did you, I don't know. That was how I was reading that conversation.
It's just so weird how he denies and represses certain emotions in favor of other ones, always for the positive, always for the sunnier, always for the lighthearted, like happy-go-lucky. And I get it. Like, it's okay to value that in someone, but it's not okay to not seek some kind of balance in like a person. Like, we all have a multitude of emotions, and I can't help but see Zach continuing to hammer it in. He's like, I like positive people. I like authentic people. I like people like this. And it's like, okay, but I don't get why you're not able to see someone for who they fully are and what they're trying to tell you. For Gabby to say, like, I'm not always going to be this super positive girl, and this is me opening up to be vulnerable with you and tell you that, like, I do have sad days, I do have bad days. And he was like, no, you don't. And actually, my ex, who I can't stop bad-mouthing, is a person that is like that, and I hate that kind of person. It's like, what? It's so discombobulating, and I felt really bad for Gabby in that moment, because to your point, Kelly, if that was me and if I really, really liked the guy, I would start to feel really insecure about what I was feeling. I would start to question myself. I would start to think I should not be nervous. I need to be kind of like what I was like on the London date. I need to be effervescent and fun and free. I can't be anxious. I can't be nervous. I can't be in my thoughts, because I tried to talk to him about it, and it wasn't a safe space to talk about it because he didn't make it one. So now I need to be a different kind of person. So yeah, you're so right. So many red flags, how he can't stop talking about Rachel, which I think is the biggest red flag in someone new that you're dating. If you can't talk about your ex with some kind of positivity, especially with the way they ended, it speaks so much about how Zach has learned from that journey. And it seems like it's been absolutely nothing. Like, he's learned nothing from like their closure conversation after the final rose, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. It really feels like by continuing to bring up the Rachel situation, it feels like he just keeps hammering home to these girls, like, you better not have any kind of swerve, right? Don't have a twist at the end of this, right? He's like, you better not. Like, Gabby was kind of saying, like, sometimes I'm not always going to be like this. And he was like, oh yeah, that's kind of what happened with Rachel. God, she sucked. And it's like, what? Like, why did you bring that up in this moment? And in general, why do you keep bad-mouthing your ex? It's like, it was like he didn't fully understand what Gabby was trying to communicate to him. He like didn't fully get what she was saying. She was trying to ask for confirmation that it's okay for her to not always be the buoyant self that she was during the date. She was asking for confirmation that it's okay. And he kind of gave her the opposite. He kind of was like, no, like, when this happened with Rachel, like, it felt like she was being fake with me. Like, when she suddenly started bringing up bad stuff in the fantasy suites and her doubts and stuff, I felt like she was being fake and like she had led me on the whole time. And I was like, wait, what you're saying is the opposite of what Gabby was asking for. So, like, there's something weird going on with the way he's, like, connecting these dots. And clearly Rachel has some piece of this, because he keeps bringing her up. He keeps bad-mouthing her. Even though, to your point, they made up after the final rose. They actually, they already patched things over. So I'm not sure what he is trying to do, why he keeps using her as an example of, like, what he doesn't want in a woman, even though I just feel bad, honestly, for these girls. It feels like they can't, to your point, open up to him. They can't, it's like it's not safe for them to bring up doubts, because when they bring up doubts, he just sends them home, right? So I just keep feeling like I don't know, if I'm dating Zach, it feels like basically what he's asking me to do is hold in any difficult feelings that I have and always be that, you know, light girl. Like, that's what it feels like he's asking from these women. And I feel bad. Like, Gabby was really amazing and buoyant on that date, but she was asking for permission to not always have to be like that. And he didn't give it to her. He, in fact, said the opposite to her. So I kind of felt bad for her in that sense.
Totally. And it wasn't like she was just asking for permission. She was just like, can I be my full self around you?
Yes.
Not just this fairy tale of like this woman. Because, okay, Zach has an idea of who he wants for his partner. He knows what he wants for his wife. But if he's trying so hard to push people through that image, he's neglecting to see so many different parts of them that could really show him like what real love looks like.
Yeah.
Because you can't always be this like perfect, sunny, super composed version of yourself. You do fall apart. You do have really bad days. Like, relationships have ebb and flows. You get out of the honeymoon stage. There's so many different parts that reveal yourself. To me, it really shows like his immaturity almost. Like, I don't know if he has been in love or like been in a truly serious relationship, because if he has, or at least if he was able to grow from it, he wouldn't expect this from women. He wouldn't expect this from his partner. He wouldn't want them to be put on this like a pedestal almost of like perfection. You have to be like this. I want you to be like this. This is what I want the relationship to look like, because he would understand that relationships have bad days and good days. They're proportional to each other.
Granted, I know a lot of people on the internet really didn't like Rachel. So a lot of people, I know people are like, oh, I don't mind him mentioning all this about Rachel because I thought she seemed fake. Like, a lot of people don't like Rachel, but I think the thing that's really interesting, you brought this up last week, Julie. You might have brought it up actually in a one-on-one conversation with me, not when we were filming, but you brought up that it's interesting that Zach is kind of, like, the way he'll, like, break up with girls, and then they'll go, and he, like, doesn't care. Like, he doesn't care sending them home. He's not affected at all. Versus with Rachel, when Rachel had to send guys home, she would get so emotional about it. She would be really sad to see a guy home. Even guys that she sent home herself, she would still be, like, you know, really affected by it. So you could really tell that she cared a lot. She clearly was not just going through the motions of being the Bachelorette. She was really sad to see guys go home. Guys who went home by themselves, guys who went over to be with Gabby, guys who she sent home. It made her sad. And to me, that was very human of her. That was so human of her to, like, really be connected to the guys that she was trying to date and to be really, really just, like, emotionally present in those relationships. In comparison to Zach, who is kind of sending home women, or, like, women will leave, women will be like, I don't feel safe in the house, and he'll just be like, okay, bye. Like, he just doesn't seem to have any real care for the girls that he's, like, wading through. And so, yeah, I think he is being a very different lead than Rachel was, but I don't know if it's in a good way. Like, I don't know if it's a good thing that he's trying to be, like, the opposite of her in a lot of ways, because, you know, for all the criticism that Rachel got in her season, there was a lot of things that she did right, and it's odd to me that he's making her out to seem like the antithesis of what he wants in a relationship, because, you know, all of the things that he's doing opposite of Rachel right now are all of the things that seem to be hurting these women that he's dating, you know? So I don't know. I'm befuddled by his behavior. To me, it's all red flags to me. Him continuing to dog on her, for him to not be allowing these women to feel safe to be their full selves. Honestly, it's ironic considering how much he's talking about, how much he's like, I don't want you to be fake. I don't want fake women here. He keeps saying that, and yet he's making it fully unsafe for any of these women to be themselves, right? As soon as anyone shares anything personal, he's like, go home, or like, why are you like this? Why are you so serious? Greer shares something about her work life. Why would you compare your life to my life? My life is more important. It's like everything. Anytime someone tries to kind of open up, he has such a bad reaction. He really is kind of keeping these girls like on their best behavior. Like, he's kind of forcing them to be performative, the exact thing that he doesn't want.
So well said, so well said. Befuddled is the exact word I would use to describe Zach. Things that he tells them to do, it makes them on guard. It makes them, like, stand up straight. It makes them pay attention. And when you're dating, of course, you're aware of yourself and you're aware of what you're projecting to people. What makes it dangerous is when it crosses into inauthenticity, when you're not sharing things because you think the person isn't able to receive it, so then you suppress, you ignore it, and that leads into resentment. That leads into a buildup of conflict that you're not able to navigate because you just don't feel like you have the space to like really fully open yourself up. Me and Kelly spoke about this offline. We were like, wow, we really want to give Zach a shot this season. We really want to see his love story like unfold. We want it to be beautiful. We want him to find his partner. We want him to learn from the experience. But it's really hard because as dating coaches, we can't help but continue to see a ton of red flags. Like his behavior is super selfish. It isn't great how we'll get to Greer in a moment. She was talking about her job, which is a serious thing. Like she needs to meet her quota at the end of the month. She gets evaluated on that. That's her performance metric. And he was like, that is not as important as me finding a wife. Like that conversation, such a turn off. If I experience that on a date, you better believe I'm like leaving that conversation. I'm texting him later that night and telling him like, no, like that wasn't okay. I'm not going on a date with you again. That was really rude the way that you handled me telling you something that is important to me in my life. Maybe it's not comparable to your life, but this is me. So like, don't judge me. I really want to root for Zach, but he makes it so hard when I see him diminishing people and validating people and kind of like pushing them towards inauthenticity and like a lack of vulnerability. I just don't see him like really opening up in a way that makes me think, wow, this guy is really looking for real love, which is all of you, not just the best side of you love.
Yeah, it is so ironic. It is so ironic that he keeps harping on this. Like, I don't want people to be fake. I want people to be authentic. He keeps harping on it, and yet his behavior is encouraging women to be fake. His behavior, everything he says to these girls is encouraging them to hold in how they really feel. Don't show me your true emotions. When Rachel showed me her true emotions, I called her fake. So don't do what Rachel did, i.e. tell me that you have doubts. Don't do that, you know? Like, it's just, that's what he's telling these women. Even Greer, so like during this whole time of Gabby's date, Greer was having this whole breakdown. She was really sad to not get the Gabby date, which we can talk about as well. She was really sad to not get this Gabby date. Listen, we're not Greer fans here. Like, some of the things that have come out online about her, I'm not fond of, but it's okay for her to be emotional about not getting her date. But she's so emotional. She has this whole breakdown, and then the next day when it's time for the group date, she's like, listen, I was really sad yesterday, but I'm gonna just try to get into the zone and have a good time. When that happened, I was like, oh, she's such a good match for Zach because she's pushing down her emotions. She's not going to tell Zach how she feels. She's just going to pretend everything is okay so that he will like her. I was like, okay, Greer, like, not how I would recommend
Maybe you'll make it to the end.
Right? I was like, this is not how I would recommend anyone to date, but that's what Zach wants. Zach wants you to push down those emotions. Don't talk to him about how you're really feeling and just perform. Be fun, be positive, be light. So this is going to be a good fit for Zach, actually. Unfortunately, the group date gets canceled by COVID. But I was like, okay, Greer, like, this is what Zach wants. Zach wants a girl who will bottle it up. And so...
Yeah. By the way, if you're enjoying this conversation so far, do us a favor and hit the like button on this video. It really helps us a lot.
Okay, so getting into this group date... Basically, there is a group date. It gets canceled because Zach is under the weather. The girls still go around London and do the date without Zach, which was very funny. I found it pretty rude that then in the evening they made those girls like get all dressed up and like put on their full glam makeup just for the producer to go in and tell them, actually Zach has COVID. It was like, production, you suck. Like, y'all really just... I'd be so pissed off. Like, some of those girls came dressed to impress. I'd be so mad, but whatever. I mean, that, for me, that's like one of the easiest, simplest signs that, wow, production is really not on these girls' side. Like, production is trying to just emotionally devastate these women and make it harder for them to find love. It's just one of the best examples, in my opinion, of like, yeah, this show claims to be about love, but come on. They're just trying to really fuck with these girls' emotions, because I would be so fucking pissed off.
It's psychological warfare. Because, like, they knew that even the next day when Charity was going to have her date, that wasn't going to happen.
And so they let her sit there with hope.
Something. Yeah, that's so mean because it becomes more than Zach.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just about them being devastated about the date. It's the fact that they had all of these expectations, all of these hopes, this excitement about this new experience. For it to be pushed down like that, kind of disappointment is so pervasive, and it's really sad to go through.
They really manipulated those girls, withheld information in order to make them have bigger breakdowns, like more emotional breakdowns. It was just like, this is gross. I was kind of not into it. Well, we always say this, it's like, the show is dramatic alone. Dating is already, there's so much intrigue in the process of dating, so I don't know why they have to create, like, manufacture even more difficult emotions. It's like emotional abuse. I'm like, I'm sorry, it just kind of is. It's just a little bit like they're just manipulating these girls' emotions to make it hurt as much as possible to get the best TV. It's just, I don't know, whatever. Anyways, Zach turns out to have COVID.
He tested positive for COVID today.
Charity's date is canceled. Charity got the other one-on-one date. Her date is canceled. Group date canceled. What they decide to do is do a virtual cocktail party where each of the girls will go in and have one-on-one time with him on a little iPad, and then a virtual rose ceremony. Most of the virtual little one-on-one dates were perfectly fine. It was actually kind of cute to me. It felt like you kind of got a sense of what these girls would be like if you were like in a long-distance relationship with them, like the way they were like holding the camera and interacting with him. I don't know. It was like a little cringe to watch them all like kissing the screen and stuff, but also it's like when you're in a long distance relationship, that's the kind of BS you have to do, right? You feel like that.
I've never kissed a screen, but I get what they were doing. I was like, of course, Zach is gonna find a way to kiss these women, no matter what, like digital whatever, he's gonna make it happen. It was like, oh my God, Zach.
I know, it was really funny. The one conversation that got everybody a little bit heated was the conversation between Greer and Zach. She is kind of consoling him, like, I'm sorry that you've lost like this really important week that you're working toward building all these relationships, and then to have a week taken away really sucks. And what she says is, I relate because I had COVID and it hit at the end of a sales quarter, because she works in sales. And I had all these targets I needed to hit, and then I got COVID and it had to be out for a week. And that really, really just, it sucked for it to come right at that moment. That was what she was trying to say. And he reacted in the most ridiculous way. He was like, that's not the same. Me trying to find my wife is more important than some sales goals. Like, he kind of reprimanded her.
I mean, I hated seeing it because she made a very relatable case for it. For her to work in sales, her quota does impact her metrics. It does impact the bonuses that she gets. It is a really big deal. It's her livelihood. It's what she really cares about. I don't know. It just confirmed my suspicion about Zach being a very selfish dater who's all about himself, and that's not masculine. It's not cute. It's gross and disturbing, and I would not want to be in a relationship with someone that couldn't have me in the relationship. It was just about Zach, his needs, his wants, what he expects. And if a woman doesn't naturally and perfectly fit into that, he will just cast her aside. It was just really indicative of who he was as a bachelor, and I can't be bothered with it. But what did you think about it when you saw it?
I mean, I'm completely with you. It felt so inappropriate for him to have that kind of outsized reaction. It was, I mean, obviously she wasn't trying to compare. She was just trying to relate and just trying to say, I understand what you're going through. And listen, maybe even if he felt like, oh, you shouldn't, work and love aren't the same, whatever he was trying to say, even if he feels that way, it's not like it was very clear that she was just trying to be empathetic, that she was just trying to show that she understood him. So maybe you don't think work is as important as your relationship, whatever, fine. But for him to just say no, your problem didn't matter, my problem is actually important. My problem is real and big, and yours was small and silly. It's belittling. It's just belittling her experience, belittling her feelings, belittling her work, belittling what she does for a living, her day-to-day, the concerns, the things that are important to her. It was just belittling all of it. I was just so grossed out, honestly, because who are you to say whether or not her job matters, whether or not her goals matter? For you to say my goals are more important than your goals, it's like, what is wrong with you? Who are you to say that her problems don't matter as much as your problems? it was such a put down. I was grossed out, frankly. It really does, to your point, Julie, say what he would be like in a relationship. It feels like he is just the kind of person who is just so focused on himself and his own experiences. I also really hated that he made her feel like she couldn't talk about her life, because you saw her immediately walk it back in the conversation. She was like, no, you're right. You're right. My problem was not important. You're right. Your wife is more important than my job. My job doesn't matter. My job is small and insignificant, and you're the only thing that matters. I was like, oh my God, Greer, you don't have to like grovel and like make yourself small for him. That's what it felt like. It felt like you saw in real time her just trying to shrink herself and erase herself just to make him like her. And I was like, oh my God, this is sad. I don't even like Greer, but this is really sad. And she walks out like kind of like almost like blaming herself. She's like, oh, like I didn't mean it like that. I feel like he's mad at me, all that stuff. I'm like, girl, like, if he's mad at you over trying to empathize, it was like, get out of there. Like, what a jerk. I'm kind of glad that the internet is kind of turning on him too, because it feels like this is one of the more, to me, egregious red flags.
It's so bad, and it really, like, I don't care that this is Zach's season, this is his love story, this is him on The Bachelor. It's all of them having their love story. It's all of them looking for something, and Zach happens to be the person that they're all looking for that with, but that doesn't make him more important. That doesn't make him here and they're here. They have to cater to him. They have to, like, please him. They have to say whatever he wants so he can give them some attention. I think that kind of, like, dynamic is super unhealthy, and we got to see how bad it could really get with that conversation, because she did feel bad about it, because what she wanted to do was please Zach. They all wanted to please Zach, and Zach is getting really, in my opinion, self-absorbed, self-centered, and selfish in his interactions because he's so centering himself. It's not attractive. Like, I don't care if the producers are in his ear telling him you're important and your love story matters. You don't talk to people like that. You don't treat people like that. It doesn't matter how disappointed you feel that you didn't have the week that you wanted. You don't make someone feel bad for trying to make you feel better. She didn't say anything malicious or out of hand. So, like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to root for Zach, but the way that he keeps talking about his ex, not okay. Like, I don't care if Rachel did do him wrong. In his opinion, they made up. He's still dragging her name on TV. I don't like how he's talking to these girls. I don't, like, if that was me and I was in the interaction, I would be walking out of that room to go back home. And maybe people would call it an overreaction. I'm not going to be treated that way. I'm not going to have someone that I want to be in a relationship with talk to me that way. And I would advise my clients to be aware of, like, what that dynamic could be like later on when the stakes really matter, when it's not a conversation about empathy, but you're saying something and he's like pushing you down because it makes him feel like he needs to feel validated in this way, so he kind of has to squash you. I don't know. I just don't think that's like a very healthy relationship to be in, and I am happy that people are seeing it.
I'm so happy people are seeing it, because this really is such a great example of, you just see how something innocuous just starts to create this power dynamic, right? This dynamic where Greer feels like she has to kind of, she can't say the wrong thing. If she says anything that upsets Zach, she has to, like, walk it back. Like, she has to be so careful with her words to make sure that he doesn't turn on her, to make sure that he doesn't get upset and send her home. And it's like that feeling of fear, of feeling like you have to
walking on eggshells, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to like make yourself say all the right things, be really careful about your words so that your partner doesn't blow up at you, doesn't think that you're drama and send you home. You have to be so careful. And it's not just girls, it's all of these girls. It feels like they're all trying so hard to be so careful to not, take him off, set off his little drama radar and get sent home. It feels like all of them are now so conscious of that, and because he's reinforcing it. He's reinforcing that he will not tolerate any sort of behavior that doesn't fully align with exactly the type of girl that he wants. And you brought this up, it made me think about this when you were talking earlier, Julie, about, like, he has this image in his head about, like, what the type of woman is that he wants. And I feel like this is another common thing that happens in dating. People will kind of set up like a little checklist or something, like this is the checklist of all of the qualities I want in a perfect partner. And while they're dating, they're kind of like mentally evaluating if this person checks off all the things on their little checklist. But the truth is, you know, people are not like, every single person that you could possibly date will have things that don't perfectly align with your vision, because people are not caricatures. People are not, you know, in the great words of Bella Porch, this ain't build a bitch.
This ain't build a bitch. I'm filled with flaws and attitudes. So if you need perfect, I'm not built for you.
Like, we are not like, you know, building little partners, you know, putting all the pieces together and just creating a robot partner for ourselves. Like, everyone is gonna have qualities that may not be perfectly aligned to you, but that doesn't make them a bad person, doesn't make them less worthy of love. It also doesn't even mean that they're not a good match for you, right? And so like, having a checklist can be so limiting. And to your point, Julie, it kind of makes you start to evaluate people in this way that it's like, as soon as you see they don't check something on your box, you're like, all right, here's the door, like, bye, it doesn't matter, nothing you feel matters. And it's like, that's what Zach seems to be kind of doing. He's trying to shoehorn people into his little checklist box. Or he's like, as soon as he sees something that is discrepant with his checklist, he sends them packing. And that's just not a good way to date. It's such a bad experience for the people that he's dating. And so I feel bad for these girls. I just feel like they cannot be themselves in this situation.
Totally. And it also speaks to the fact that because he has so many options to choose from, he's depersonalizing them a little bit. He's like, if it's not you, it will be one of the 11 girls that I have back in the mansion. It just kind of sets up a relationship where I'm just making a very early prediction. If he does get married or engaged at the end of this, they're not going to make it to the end. There's no way. There's just no way, unless the girl at the end and him have gone through, like, I'm able to see some vulnerability from them. If I don't see it, then I just don't see Zach being a return back to love stories. I see him just trying to push people through that narrative. And when they're in the real world again, it's going to fall apart when he starts to discover who you are is different than who I thought you were in my season. And they'll see that with Zach too. Like, the guy I was looking to impress, now that I'm really getting to know him, I don't know if I really like him that much.
My only like asterisk there is like, either it will just fall apart, or if he finds a girl, for example, like Greer, who is willing to make herself small for a partner, maybe it will work out. But that's sad. Like, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but there are lots of people out there who, you know, they just feel like that's what they have to do in a relationship, or they're like, I love him so much, it's okay, like, I want to make it work. And we become so desperate to have that partner's approval to make the relationship work that we are willing to kind of like change ourselves or hide ourselves or like contort into whatever it is that they want you to be. And I mean, I kind of worry that Greer might be that type of girl just based on the way that she has been moving through this season. She did have one moment where she kind of was like, I feel like Zach stood me up, and I'm not okay with that, which by the way was weird because he was sick. I don't know why she was acting like he stood her up, but at least that showed a little bit of fire that maybe she'll like push back if someone treats her poorly. But like, in that interaction, in that Zoom call with him, it really did feel like we were watching her in real time bending over backwards to get his approval, even though he was frankly just being rude to her. And yet she was just so focused on making sure that he liked her that she was like, okay, I'm sorry, I'll be different. I'm different now. Like, and so I do think that unfortunately, there may be girls in this house who are willing to do that for Zach's approval. There may be girls who are willing to, you know, contort themselves and make themselves small in order to fit into Zach's narrative and be able to get the ring and get the marriage and live happily ever after, despite the fact that maybe it's not so happy on the inside. It's sad. It comes from a place of lacking self-worth or lacking understanding of like what you deserve and feeling like this is just what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to bend over backwards for love, which is sad.
Absolutely. And the reason why me and Kelly feel so passionate about this point is because those girls don't some of those girls that represent someone like Greer, where you say they might have, and we're not saying she doesn't, we're just saying what she could represent in terms of like maybe not having a lot of worth or love.
We don't know, but yeah.
We don't know that, but like we do know a lot of people that we've coached or we've had clients with have dealt with that very issue, where they, because they don't have that, it's like they don't have this internal compass of knowing when situations are not good for them. Yeah. And it kind of like leads them back deeper into it because they don't understand that that kind of behavior is unacceptable. When you say something to someone, you shouldn't feel bad about it. If you're trying to be empathetic and you're trying to relate to someone, they shouldn't make you feel bad. They shouldn't try to push you into a box and make you feel like you need to be different so that they could love you. If that's happening, that is very unhealthy. It's not okay. And that's something that you should either bring up with them and see if there's a like, hey, like calling them out and saying like, the way that you're talking to me is not okay. I don't appreciate that. I'm trying to relate to you. You have to respect what I'm saying. Maybe it's not the same thing, but don't make me feel bad about it. That's not okay. Right. It was just really hard to see her take the opposite reaction to that because she is trying so hard to please him that she wasn't able to have that conversation. And to me, that is the marker of like a healthy relationship. It's someone being able to call someone out for their behavior and saying, we need to have a really hard conversation about this thing in the relationship so we can be better.
I felt bad for the last couple episodes. Like I felt like we were being really critical of Zach and us.
I felt
we were being
I know
too critical, but after this episode,
Kelly had conversations about this. We were like, we need to lighten up on Zach.
We gotta pull our punches a little bit, but now it does kind of feel like. After this episode, I feel a lot more, like, throughout the episode, I just kept saying, like, gosh, he seems awful to date. Like, I kept saying that, even before the Greer thing. And the Gabby date itself, I was like, I don't know, this feels bad. I just don't feel like these girls are safe when they're with him. I just don't feel like they're safe.
And when we mean safety, we mean emotional safety, too, because that is super important. It's not like he's doing anything particularly abusive or toxic, but it could lead into that, like very early on, if this behavior isn't curbed, if they're not able to be their full authentic self. I think that's extremely dangerous in a relationship. To me, that is what a happy ending is. That's a fairy tale of a story. If you can meet someone that loves you and sees you for exactly who you are and celebrates it, that is love. That's what everyone should be looking for. Not, can you be my best friend forever, my partner in crime to travel the world with and just have fun and jump out of like airplanes. That's cool, but that's such a small percentage of it. If you're like such an experience-oriented couple and you're not able to really sit with someone and talk to someone about the things that really matter to you, there might be something up of your relationship that you should think about, because that's not the healthiest one. You know, you should really be able to dig into the stuff of someone and for it not to set them off and for you to oppress yourself further.
Yeah, you're so right. You're absolutely right. The other thing, by the way, too, that he said that like pissed me off was when Greer first sat down and like made the joke about like, oh, I'm glad like my little camera isn't there, my little Zoom self-facing camera isn't there, because I would just be staring at myself the whole time. Which, by the way, is like a joke that truly like everyone makes that joke about Zoom if you have had to be on endless Zoom meetings because of the pandemic. Yeah, that is a problem that lots of people have dealt with because of Zoom and having to like look at yourself. And so her saying it was like completely just like normal comment, wasn't even interesting. It was just like a joke offhandedly said. And he was like, really? You just stare at yourself the whole time? I'm like, shut up, Zach. What the heck is wrong with you? I was like, just
everyone does, Zach.
Everyone.
And by the way, people love that joke in Zoom meetings.
I know. We all make that joke. I make that joke. Julie makes that joke. It's just it's like, oh my God. It's like boilerplate. But he gave her a hard time about it. He's like, you look at yourself the whole time. And she was like, no, maybe just once or twice. She had to like, again, pull herself back. You just see her kind of just contorting into this thing that whatever it is that Zach wants, I'm going to contort into that. And I was like, Greer! I just felt so bad. I'm also like, sorry, I feel bad that I always go here, but just give it just a little whiff of misogyny, because of course, for women, it's a little bit worse. That feeling of like feeling like you need to look a certain way in front of the damn camera is a very specific feeling that women deal with, because women are expected to show up and look a certain way when they are in public, right? Men don't have to deal with that. So yeah, of course Greer's looking at herself in the damn camera. Don't make her feel bad about it. That's not her fault. That's fucking patriarchy. Shut the fuck up, Zach. Sorry, I got mad. That just like pisses me off.
But I'm glad you got in your soapbox about that, because when she said that comment, I laughed. Because I've seen that joke many times in Zoom meetings. I always laugh. I always think it's funny, because it is weird to like, before Zoom, before the pandemic, I just never looked at myself as often as I do on Zoom. And the first few months after that, I just remember being so caught off guard by it. And even when I have meetings, I can't help but see myself sometimes, because I'm like, wow, that's what I look like. That's what I talk like. That's how I move my hands. He didn't roll with the joke. He was he's serious and funny in different ways, in random ways. It's not consistent with him.
Yeah,
you may throw him a joke, and then one day he's able to roll with it. The next day he will, it's like put up the brakes really fast and say like, hey, that wasn't funny and that wasn't okay. So it's really hard to know how to be around Zach. And I just don't love when you are in a relationship with someone where you feel like you can't be at ease. And you're not able to
walking
relax.
On eggshells.
Exactly. Like, you kind of just have to stay on alert. I'm just going to keep looking out for it. But, like, Zach, give us something to work with. We want to root for you in some way. Just, like, talk nicely about your ex. Be nice to these girls when you send them home. We're not asking for a lot.
We're
but
not
we are asking for some empathy and consideration.
I know.
Give us that.
Gosh.
Yeah.
All right. Let us know down below. What did you all think of his conversation with Greer? The comments that he made about her work, the comments that he made about her Zoom camera selfie self-consciousness. What did you think about the way Zach was approaching and handling his conversations with her, and also with Gabby, and just overall throughout this episode and this season? Give us your thoughts. Let's keep talking about it down below. Those are the main things that happened in the episode. We did have our virtual rose ceremony. Kylie and Mercedes were the two who were sent home virtually via a screen, which was pretty brutal. Greer got the last rose, and it felt like a bit of a punishment for their conversation. So once again, it's like, feels like Zach is like punishing women for like displeasing him. So with that, we are recapping every episode of The Bachelor for Zach's season. So if you are into this kind of stuff, make sure you have subscribed to our channel so you don't miss a Bachelor recap, and we will be back next week for week 6. Bye.